Stump the Chump. Okay, so from David via email, we had a few that were emailed before the meeting that we had questions. So as we convert from classic to kinetic browser menus, how do we get classic configurators to launch from the kinetic browser? And these are converting configurators to CPQ, but the menus need to be kinetic first, so there's some overlap. Do you guys use CPQ, Christine?
We do not.
I don't have anybody using the KB Max CPQ version, the old configurators, but not the new ones.
Yeah, I know of a couple that uses the old. I don't know if they've switched over yet.
David, you still out there? I see you're online.
That David Erickson.
Mm-hmm.
David, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi.
There you are.
Yeah, so we are still using the classic configurators, and we're eventually going to be converting to CPQ, but we'll be in the kinetic menus before that. And our plan is to do them all through the browser. Do you know if you're able to launch the classic configurator from the kinetic browser?
Kind of, but I haven't found a way to do it. And every time we get that, you need to install the Edge agent, even though we have it installed, and it won't let us install it when we try to run configurators. The old configurator, we didn't try with the new CPQ. So that's why I was hoping Christine might have already tried that. That was the question I was saying about the Edge agent. We can't get the darn thing to load right from there. But then if we load it, it doesn't kick it off when we try to run configurator either.
Yeah, we don't have the configurator, so I don't know how to answer that question. But we have noticed that they aren't always playing nice to each other when you're wanting to go between a classic and a kinetic screen. They're not too friendly. You kind of want to pick one or the other. So I don't know how to best say. I mean, there might be some people that we could ask and maybe follow up. But I think the people that I'm thinking of are still using the classic screens, even though they are on a version where they could be a browser kinetic.
Awesome. Our next chump from Carl F. via email. Customer service team started recently testing the kinetic UI. Woohoo! Another adopter starting to go there. They have a complaint. How rude. They cannot open multiple orders at the same time. They'd like to do this like they did in classic screen, hold the left shift key and have multiples. Well, they can do that. Hold the left shift key and click the browser and open Epicor again. It is not taking up another license. So you can have 20 browser windows open, and each one have a different order on them. It's kind of the same way as doing it in the past. You would turn around and hold the, left controller, left shift key, and then click the Epicor menu item, and it would open another copy of the same program. That's actually a Windows feature. That's not an Epicor that you're utilizing there to open another by running more than one browser. Same thing. You're not taking up an additional license, Carl, so I would just have them open an additional browser window for this. We'll leave that in the meeting notes. I don't know of any other way to do it, Christine. I know I haven't seen in browser.
Yeah, in 24.1, I mean, you have the option to right-click on the menu item if you're in the menu structure. If you right-click on the menu item, you can just do open a new tab, and that's what we've told the users. Right? Again, same thing. There isn't any other way to do it.
What I have seen, if you want, I mean, I can pull up a browser window. When I turn around hover, I get my option. Hey, throw it in this corner, then throw my other browser in the other corner. So I can look at 4 different orders at the same time, but it's actually going to be 4 different browser windows. Karen, in Kinetic, is there a way to import values on the parts, dynamic attributes, value screen?
Should be able to do it with the DMT, I would think.
I would have said that too. I'm like, I've never heard of a problem with the DMT not being able to do it.
And Karen's not online, so I'm not sure if she might not be familiar with the tool.
Okay,
or she might have
it's
been
in the
looking for
notes
like
here.
a copy paste.
I don't believe there's a copy paste feature for that because you have to open up the attribute window, kind of like when you do customer attributes or supplier attributes. You have to click them from one panel over to the other. There's not really a way that you can just enter them unless you put a custom field on there. And I think they're separated by tilde still. But then you could load it into that custom field with the tilde. It's not really a custom field. You're just displaying Epicor's base field, just not the little graphical UI for moving the attributes from one side to the other. Jonathan V, online today. A general question came up. Didn't know if it fits into the agenda. So, hey, I threw it in here anyway, Jonathan. They went through their first month end in Kinetic. Is there a dashboard or screen in Kinetic for part transaction history that's able to be filtered by date range, part class, material type, or is having a custom report or desktop the only way to do that? That I would say is just how the screen works. You can turn around and do those filters already on transaction history tracker. I'm not going crazy, am I?
Yeah,
Nope,
you
you
just have
should be
to
able
enable the filter.
Yeah, you just got to hit the little filter funnel.
Yeah, if you hit the little funnel, you should be able to do that. There are some forms. Just FYI, this part transaction history tracker may not be the one that it might pull in all the records, but there are some of the forms that when you do try to use the filters, where you do need to use that icon right next to it. That's the arrow down with a line underneath to make sure you get all the records in before you can do filters on certain columns. If you are in a grid form like that and you don't see a filter option for the column you want to use.
I've got a couple items that go back to the previous questions if you're ready for them.
The previous ones?
I've been curious for a while if there is a way for users who don't have DMT access to be able to import an Excel file right into the client, like we used to be able to do the paste inserts. I think that's gone with the web, isn't it?
I think there were some coming
I
back where you
thought
were
there were.
able to do a paste update, but it's not like it was in the classic client. I know engineering workbench, which we were doing that on a couple of in our testing where we had it in an Excel sheet and we used a paste update try to format instead of DMT.
David Erickson, one issue I had with DA, which I think is dynamic attributes, is how they use DA sets. There's a process that will need to be ran to assign the new attribute set ID on where the dynamic attribute value is used. If you run a stack trace, you can see the business object methods needed. I think he was just trying to head off if people try to use that they might need to run that process again.
So I have a part here, the transaction history tracker. When I turn on the filter, I can put filters on any of these columns. So I can
And
say,
you got those filters by clicking the filter icon on the header there, right?
Yep. So you should be able to do this, Jonathan. But yeah, you would just turn on the filter and then click on the column you want sorted. Okay, our next one after Jonathan was Mike K. Online message today. For some time today, what happened to advanced searches in Kinetic UX and what are the search options others are using? What do you guys use, Christine?
Yeah, the advanced searches are not there.
What Hannah said at the last user group meeting was turn around and add your own text box onto the form, tie it to a BAQ, and have it do a search as soon as you start typing in. And then the event was to pass that record back to the form. Because, yes, this is a number one complaint for people. And it was just putting your own object in Application Studio on there and then controlling your events and populating the data and building your own search tool. I want to say Priyanka was doing something with a combo box too, that passed the value being entered in the combo box to the BAQ and then did kind of like a Google quick search.
You may have. I
I don't
don't
know
remember
exactly
for
what
sure.
our developer does there.
So Mike, if you run across a different way to do it, this is what we've been seeing, but if you find something else, do let us know. Can a BAQ be written to separate the resource time used table to split out individual rows of data for each load date and load hour? you should be able to write a BAQ against any table in the system. And then splitting out individual rows is just putting a criteria on your BAQ, isn't it? Or a parameter prompting the user to enter and then filtering.
Yeah, you should be able to do a parameter for like your start and end for your load date, or if you're looking for the load hours, and then use those in your criteria on the table. If you're looking to group them by that date, you could return the grid and then do the right click, show group by, drop it up in there, or export it to Excel and group it in there.
Next one, Tim R. put a comment onto it, and we discussed a little bit during the meeting. And it was how to share the help, or how to use that annotations to share information across users of, hey, this is our standard work instruction. Hull had shared an idea of using Camtasia is what they use to make video trainings, and then turn around and share the videos people can watch while they're doing work to figure out how to use the software, and kind of share that rather than written documentation.
And Camtasia is a pretty easy tool to work with, and honestly relatively cheap. You can do things like you can focus on just where the mouse is, so when they click, it'll do like a little radar blip so people know where they clicked. You can zoom in and zoom out. So if a dialog pops up, you can make it zoom just on that. And it sounds like from Ryan, Epicor recommends ScreenPal, and it works pretty well for him too. So those are a couple options for you. Instead of just doing, like previously, you would do the help annotations. Now you could actually have a video link out there and do your screen along with any customizations or personalizations in it.
So my days of using the problem step recorder to get my screenshots and my work instructions at the same time are going away. Awesome. Thanks, all, for the tip. Anyone have a recommendation on mass deploying of the Edge agent? And yes, Christine, you had an idea from your team.
I just got the information.
Awesome.
I can send that so they can go out with the minutes. Most of what we did can be found in a thread on the epiusers.help. There is a topic out there for Kinetic Edge Agent Silent Install, which is what we do. What he says is he runs the Edge Agent exe with an option file switch that allows all the server and client settings to be defined in that option file. Then he just deploys it during our normal deployment that we do.
And I'm going to let people kind of read this. I'm not going to prove my reading skills are terrible. And this has to do with creating new layers and making layers of the Kinetic Application Studio be company specific. And Mel was having some issues on getting the menu deployments to be company specific for Application Studio. Now, I haven't tried to do a company specific one. I've just done it for all companies. Have you tried a company specific, Christine?
I do company specific menus, but I haven't played in Application Studio. But yeah, I do company.
A different layer for each company?
No, I haven't tried that.
Mel, you're going out on the edge here with the bleeding level of technology, is trying to figure this out. If you do find a way to do this, if you can share it, I would just think that you would deploy the Application Studio to the menu, make another company version, and then make them company specific on the menu.
That's what he's having to do. And the way you do that in Kinetic, or one of the ways to do that, is copy to current company, and then you can set your company specific item. But by default, your menus are set global, and so you can't set a company specific customization on that global item. You have to copy it from the global to the current company, so that you've got a company specific menu. Then you can put the customization on that company specific menu. So I think you're doing it right, Mel. I'm not sure there is a different way. The only other way I know of is literally create the menu item from scratch and don't check the box that says all companies. And then it should be company specific as well. But it'd be in whatever company you're in when you're editing the menu.
Okay, yeah, I was able to finally get it to work, and you are correct. I did have to create I had to copy the quote entry to the current company, then turn around and do it for the other company, and made sure that the module said FUD. And that was the only way I could figure to get that to work. In the classic, you used to be able to just call it quote entry live and create it for each company. Create 3 of them, then you can change the customization in each company. But that was the only way I can get it to work. So
Got it. And Mike K is also replying the same thing. He has to do the copy to current company to get any success with that.
okay, I was wondering if there's a different way or easier way.
After Mel's question, we had Mickey. Is there an easy way to add actual total labor hours to production detail report? It shows the actual total labor hours for your operation, but only for one person versus the total crew size.
Yes, so for example, we have 3 crew size for the first operation and 5 for the second operation, but it always just shows the total labor hours just for one person on each of those.
That I would go back to Epicor with. That's a bug. Because if you have multiple people clocking in on the same operation, you should see all of their labor, not just the first person.
Well, we use backflush, but it should still look at the crew size, right?
You're backflushing labor?
Yes, we only put in quantity created, and it backflushes based on the rates we put in.
I would say that's a bug, because if you have a crew size of 2, it should backflush the labor for 2 people. I've never heard of that on the PDR not having actual labor on it. But with a backflush labor, I could see that being an issue. Zane has a cloud question. Is there to have MRP automatically restart if there's a failure? They've had several instances where MRP started, then failed with a server error, and they need to get it to automatically restart.
Guess it depends on maybe what the failure is. What type of failure is it? Do you not have enough? I don't know cloud enough, but
But
do you have
it's
enough
an Epicor
processors?
server. Are
Yeah.
you in a private cloud, Zane?
Zane, you can unmute yourself now.
Okay. No, we're on a public cloud. The error that we're getting is a server error where it's a disconnect. Support says that it was a SQL failover. So when it fails over to another server, MRP does not pick that up. It just dies on the server that it was running on. So I haven't talked to support about trying to be able to come up with a way to have it automatically restart. That was just a question that I had here. But that's happened twice in the last week where we've had a SQL failover that's caused MRP to fail.
That sounds like something Epicor needs to address
Yeah,
because
fixed.
that should
I mean,
not happen to you.
if you were on-prem, you can write a task agent that if the service stops, you can kick off a PowerShell script to restart it. That's what a lot of people will do. But you can't do that in a cloud with other people because you're restarting the whole task agent service.
And in the cloud, if they're failing over the SQL server, it should be almost instantaneous. So
Yeah,
I
apparently
understand that MRP won't pick it up, but it should
apparently
still
it's not
continue.
instantaneous enough for MRP to keep from kicking out.
Then maybe they need to adjust MRP to go, oh, I can't get to SQL, wait 30 seconds and then go again. Because being up in the cloud, you should have pretty good resources on those SQL servers for failover. And it should just be another server picking up the name and responding. So I would have thought that it would go pretty quickly. But like you said, obviously not quickly enough. But I would have thought it would be a little more resilient than what you're seeing.
Yeah, I will open a ticket with them, see if they've got a way to do that.
And you're going through the cloud group or through the MRP group?
For support?
Yeah, I don't know if they're sending you to cloud tech support for the server or if you would want to go through someone like Warren's team or Scott's team.
Yeah, I don't know. I just opened the ticket. It's generally they turn it over to the cloud team.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't have them turn it over to the cloud team. Somebody in application support of the MRP application is the one that needs to fix this.
The way to do that would be to request that in your ticket or call in. When you call in, request it that way, Kelvin.
Yep. Because this isn't a cloud service issue. This is the way the application runs. I would think that it would also affect other people like Christine and large companies but we're probably not doing SQL replication stuff in an on-prem environment.
Most people
Well,
probably aren't.
we do replication, but we don't fail over to another
Yeah,
server, which is what happens here.
it's a
I
little more
could see that.
expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still does, but at one point you had to have the enterprise license for SQL, and you had to pay for two because they'd both be up at the same time, and then you have to have network storage that's using a quick backbone that the two servers are both connected to. So it's not a cheap solution for most people. It's kind of overkill for the mid-range clients, but your larger clients, I could see doing it on-prem.
Next one from Glenn online. You've discussed sunsetting of the classic UI. Any insight on how that's going to impact the DLLs? The DLLs are still used by the smart client, aren't they?
Well, once you sunset the classic UI, you'll be in Kinetic only, Kinetic UI, which is all web-based calls. So
But the smart
in,
client for Kinetic still pulls and installs all the DLLs.
it still pulls all the DLLs because it has to support the classic screens.
But
So
I
once the
don't think
classic
that's
screens are gone, it has no need for that. You're going to only be doing web calls. So you're going to be better off just using the web interface. And in the web interface, you don't pull DLLs down.
I
So
thought
I
I
think
saw
in the long
somewhere
run, they're going to go away. Sorry, Christine.
eventually that smart client goes away altogether.
Yep, it would make sense because really the smart client with Kinetic UI, all it's providing is a web frame or a web browser frame to display the web pages in Kinetic, which is why it runs faster on the web, because in the smart client, you have to take the smart client, put it into the web browser, and then push over to the actual web UI. So if you take those two layers out and just run into a web browser, it's obviously going to run faster because you're just getting rid of two layers of calls. So if that's the route they're going and they get rid of classic UI, I wouldn't see any. Like you said, Christine, I don't think they'd even deploy a smart client anymore because it just doesn't make sense. They just go, here's the URL, use it. But I'm not a developer for Epicor. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I would see based on where they're headed.
Okay, yeah, it seems to make sense to be headed towards using the APIs, but projects and timing and all that good stuff. So just trying to keep an eye on that cliff if it's coming.
Yeah, I think they're trying to keep an eye out. They need to make sure everything does go over to the web first, and that people are happy and getting it. Then give you time to get off. They're trying to be respectful to everybody. It seems like that you might have customizations and stuff, give you time to get switched over, but they have been providing a warning that it is going away. So the sooner you can start moving that direction, I think the safer you'll be in the long run.
Yeah,
Yep.
but they've missed their mark since 2022.
Yep.
Because that was the first sunset date.
I was going to see if I had a picture of that from when we were at Insights, or when they were going to sunset that.
And I think, Glenn, on the other side of that would be if you've developed any outside applications or somebody else has developed outside applications that talk to your Epicor, if those are using the DLLs, you want to get those switched over to using the REST services as well. You're going to be a little bit more insulated from updates to Epicor. You're not going to have to recompile the program every time. And those should run faster as well.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
According to a slide that I took pictures of at Insights, 24.2, it says that the phase out sunset plan begins, and then it says browser only login. I don't know exactly what that entails from there, but just FYI.
So they're saying the end of this year.
Yeah, the way that we're approaching is, I feel like we have at least till the end of 2025, if not longer. But our goal right now is we're going to shoot for end of 2025 to have everything up, if not before.
There you go, Glenn. Next one from Mickey. The where used report. How do you change the search option to have it look at inactive parts as well? I don't know as if you'd want it to look at inactive parts, because that could be an awful lot of information in your system, like inactive parts or unapproved revisions.
So when you bring up that report and you click on the filter option and you go to search, there's a status there that says inactive and it's grayed out. We'd love to be able to just pull up inactive parts when needed. Is there any way on how to ungray that particular status?
Unless there's a way
Yeah,
you can decompile the DLL and look what it's doing.
yeah, I would think if it's turned off, you're kind of stuck unless it's a permissions thing, like you have to be part of a certain group to run it, but I don't think that's the case. But I'm
Yeah,
surprised it's there, but you can't check it. That seems somewhat silly too.
I mean, we can look in BAQ, obviously. We have that option, but this is for people who don't have BAQ access, so.
If you do end up doing a BAQ, you could turn that into a BAQ report or a dashboard, and then people would have access to it even though they don't have the other one. That might be an option for you.
That's true. Thanks, Fred.
Sure.
Question about needing a second app server for single sign-on Chase. What about for browser only, creating credential saving? Is there a downside to this?
We do sign on in 24/1 right now with one server.
I don't know if you can prevent the credential saving from happening if that's what you're trying to ask, but I just think the only downside to allowing credential saving is just a security reason. I don't see it being a problem, so to speak.
I would see the security problem being I didn't lock my machine. Someone walked up to it, opened Epicor, and they have full access.
Yeah, but that's just a security, not just obviously security risks or problems nonetheless, but I don't know if I'm not sure of if there's a way to prevent them from allowing, like having, because it's a browser. I don't think you can lock down Chrome to prevent that. I could look into that and get you that answer, but the only downside for the credential saving would be a security risk from my point of view.
Mike, you're unlocked, or you can unmute yourself if you want to chime
Yeah,
in.
that sounds about right to me. I'm just trying to get away from that second app server, and it seems like in our brief, use of the browser interface that it works pretty well to just let the browser keep the credentials, and it's enough of a simulated SSO, I guess.
I could say for a recommendation, if you want, personally speaking, I don't think saving credentials on browsers is the most safe thing. But if your company wants to invest in a password security manager like Bitwarden, I think them saving their passwords there so they don't have to forget about it, and then you can have that web extension. They just click on it, sign in with their master password, and then it'll fill in their credentials there. That way, it's not being saved on a less secure area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Christopher L., good question. The resource time used a delimited field for load days and a second delimited field for load hours. So separating the two columns, you have load day 1, load hour 1. Load day 2 with load hour 2 would take some finesse. Fred, don't you have a way of doing that in SQL with I thought there was a separator character, like if they had tildes between the records, you could have SQL parse them as an array.
You can, if you're on a modern version of SQL, I don't remember which one. I think there's a function called char split. Otherwise, if you're in SQL itself, there's an ability to do it with like 4XML, but I don't know if 4XML works inside of Epicor's BAQs. Let me look up char split T-SQL. Make sure I get you the right string split. I'm sorry, not char split.
Because I'm like, if he's running 10.1 or an earlier version of
Yeah.
that's going to be an older version of SQL that may not have that feature.
But I think the char split would break it out and give you something close to what you're looking for.
But that
I
would
guess,
probably be the easiest way to do that, Christopher.
yeah, that's good to know. I'm on SQL Server 2016, so I should have the string split, but I didn't know it would function when there's two delimited columns and be able to instantly link them. I assumed you'd have to kind of break each one out with an index and then tie them back together.
And I think with the string split, you'll get there. So 2016 is actually the first version where string split works. So you could try that and see if that would work. I know you're not the one with the problem, but it might be something to give a shot.
Excellent. That's good to know. Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Fine. And it wasn't even Christopher's problem. But unfortunately, Christopher was our last submission. Any others that we have out here?
There's a couple in questions. I think going back to previous questions, Mel had a question. I believe this has to go with Edge Agent. Mel, I think you can unmute yourself if you want to chime in. It's where you had typed in, I installed the test DB, no problem. How do I add the live DB? I think
Yeah.
that was the multiple URLs with the Edge Agent.
Yeah, that's correct. The first time through, you go through, you put in the path for the test database. Then instead of going through and doing it for the live, can you just go into the application and just put the path name in without going through the install?
You would have to go through a file, I think, to do it. Otherwise, you have to
Do
reinstall.
Okay.
And
At least that's the
Christine,
two way we have found to do it.
Christine did send me what their person and, or I'm sorry, sent me what her person's doing for automatic deployment. And in that script, it looked like there were like URL 1, URL 2. So when the minutes go out, we'll put that script in there. I've asked Madison to include it, and that may be the way to do it so that you don't have to go in and reinstall and add a second one. Chase, have you run into the second URL?
It just pulled up the documentation for the install that Epicor provides, and I'm thinking, if I remember right, you should be able to change the cert. You might be able to. Shouldn't, not should. You might be able to on the confirmation page that gets posted. So I'm pretty sure if you, in the system tray, if you open up the Edge agent, you click restore, it'll populate that and it'll have like a get default printer, get all printers, print test PDF, that sort of stuff. You might be able to edit it in that page somewhere, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I have yet to find that. That is
Okay.
the one thing I'm missing with the Edge agent, is a good way to add additional URL.
Without installing it again.
Yeah, it's either install or you find the file, the sys file or whatever. I can't remember what the name of it is. And then you can add the path of the URL in that.
So, hey, Christine, then if you do the reinstall, do you lose your first URL or does it stay
No,
there?
no, it's usually been
Okay.
there,
Okay.
which has been the nice thing. It's just the thing that they're missing is a way for us to just, right click and add additional
Just put the
URLs.
path in, yeah.
And then from Ryan, I think this goes back to Mickey's question on that gray checkbox. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering everything, Mickey.
Yeah, the where used inactive
But
parts.
in part where used dashboard shows your inactive parts, and that's under executive analysis trackers part where used. That might be a solution for you as well, Mickey.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So the part where used dashboard
Right.
shows inactive parts.
There's
and
a
then he-
where used dashboard? You mean
Yep.
the report?
He says it's a dashboard, and I'm gonna.
Hmm.
Here, Mickey, over here on the executive analysis tracker, there's a part where used, not under the engineering or the production, but under the executive analysis, there's a dashboard for it.
It might just be called, that one's called part where used, and then there's the where
is.
used report.
It is, it's right here.
So
Are you
it's
guys
under-
able to see my screen?
Yes, but when I look at mine, so I'm in pilot, but executive analysis, then trackers, I have no part where used.
What
I
version
don't
are
have
you
it
running?
either.
This is, let me just double check again, but I thought the pilot was the latest and greatest, but hang on.
In the upper right-hand corner, do you have the, because I was looking at 23.2, I wasn't in 24.1.
Yeah, I'm in, it's 2024.1.8.
24.1, it's there.
Can you try just, instead of searching for it, just follow the menu path?
Oh no, that's what I did.
And you still don't see it?
Correct. So executive analysis, trackers. Well, let me go to status dashboards. No, there's no part.
No, mine shows up in the tracker in 24.1.5.
I
It's
have,
a ways down. It's
Yeah,
about
right
8 from the
is-
bottom.
yeah, I only have like 8 items that show up. So maybe I need to change some settings because I was
You have
supposed
Or
to.
you don't have security to
Security.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to have
Somebody
full
locked you
access.
out, Mickey.
Apparently. Thank you guys. I'll see what I can fix that.
Mickey, if you didn't know, there's a little pink slip on your desk from HR, and you might want to go see.
You might find you can't print, get to network stairs over the next hour.
Thanks, guys.
I needed the last one to be something funny. Awesome. Oh, crud, we got more up here. Back to attaching work instructions, company-specific help to user programs, creating videos for training, but how do I attach the link of the video to the program? Exactly. The only way to do that is to put your own custom field there with a link to the video or the SOP out on your network. You'd have to add a custom field to the screen, which would have a link to the document.
Or you could do like a button if you're in Kinetic UI and have it open up the browser. You could do a click event and have it open a URL.
But the URL would be the link to the video or the document.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I still need a custom field to store that link.
Yes.
You can also put that
look pretty.
That custom field, you can also make it a blue hyperlink in the text box. So that when you click on it, it opens the hyperlink just like as if you clicked on open my browser with this link. Greg, I need a little more to work with their part advisor.
I think that was in reference to when we were looking for the where used. He was suggesting possibly part advisor might be a solution as well. I think that's what Greg, let me find you, Greg, just in case it's something else. He says correct. Okay. Thank you for typing faster than I could find you and unmute you.
I believe the part where you use tracker references approved and unapproved revisions, not active or inactive.
We were looking for inactive parts, I think. Is that right, Mickey?
Yeah.
That is correct.
I mean, this
So it
one
looks like
shows
you
up
had to.
well, okay, this is going to be a bad example because we don't technically inactivate parts because we do a lot of repairs, and so we have to keep them active. Most of our parts has to still be active even though they're inactive from our system.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Do you have a column in the grid for inactive even?
Oh, let's see.
Because then you could do the filter that way. You're right.
Just need to see if it's turned off.
Not in there. When you search, well, wherever your search went.
The magnifying glass.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, it doesn't have much air, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the part number. You couldn't necessarily pull up all parts for inactive.
It may not be a good test, a good way to show because, again, most of our parts still has to show active because we do use them in the repair process.
But you could turn around and add that field to your grid here.
Yeah, with a customization, you could.
Yep.
You just gotta also make sure that your search is allowing you to pull the inactive part in.
The extras. Yep.
And I am a security manager in my pilot system, so where else do I need to change something? So I actually see this.
Or where used.
I would go to menu maintenance, and in menu maintenance, open up the executive dashboards and then go to the trackers and make sure your account has access to everything. They could have turned system managers off.
Yeah.
It's like there's a cash flow in there also that not everybody should see.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes, but normally system manager does get access to everything.
We haven't changed. I don't think we've changed this. So this is just a complaint from a user who really liked all the groups and everything to be in one screen. Now you have to go to 3 different screens in order to make sure you're adding that security group to the right. It's a frustration piece when you're dealing with a lot of security groups and a lot of companies.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending.
Meetings coming up. We're in September and November. That'll also be in the minutes that go out. Go ahead and mark your calendars.